Been joined by the Honorable Councilman Jose Rizar. And we are expecting Councilman Krikorian. Is that right? He probably is in committee. We apologize, Councilman, very late today. And so we're regrouping for the second part of the day. That being said, we have an extensive agenda. We have speaker cards on every item. On each item, though, if, how can I put this? If it's being recommended as a consent item, I'd like for you to know that, which means you're way ahead of the game. And if you really feel compelled to speak, then that is your prerogative. But we'll play it by ear. Mr. CLA, do we have an announcement?
Yes, before we begin the meeting, if anyone is here relative to the Hannah Schwartz apartment being included in the list of historic cultural monuments, that matter has been continued to the meeting of May 24. So again, the matter of the Hannah Schwartz apartments to be included in the list of historic cultural monuments has been continued to the meeting of May 24, 2011.
Do we have an item number for that?
No, it's not an item number. In previous discussions, it had been stated that it would be heard at this today. However, it is not on the agenda, and it will be heard on May 24.
And what was the address again, or the location?
The address is 330 South Almont Drive, and the file number is 11-0565.
So that particular address and case will not be heard today, and will be heard, is there a date for that?
May 24.
May 24th. So if you're here for that, I don't want to keep you here waiting, because it's not going to come on the agenda, but it will be heard on May 24th. Okay, item 12, I understand, will be continued for 30 days, item 12. So those of you that are here for item 12, that will be continued for 30 days. And let me just go over the items that are consent as recommended by staff, but I do have cards on these items, and let me just go through them really quick. So item 4 is consent, if it's okay with my colleague. 5 could be consent, but we have 2 cards, 3 cards. So I'm assuming you still want to speak. I don't want to attend to them. I just want to know if you still want to speak on 5.
Mr. Chair, Ben Resnick, the only reason is there are some minor changes to conditions. It could go on consent if those changes are accepted.
Now, has the staff received the changes?
The staff has the changes, and the staff had asked us to delete 2 of those changes, which we accept.
Is the staff in agreement with what was just stated? If it is, then we can move that on consent.
Council members, my name is Kevin Jones, the hearing officer that was assigned to the case. If they withdraw 2 of the conditions that we did not agree with, it can certainly be a consent item.
And is that the case, Mr. Resnick?
Yes, that is acceptable.
So given that is their position, can we move this as consent?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes, then we move 4 and 5 on consent if my colleague approves. Item 6 was 1 card, and that is on a consent item. And it says, note, only will speak if item is not on consent. So thank you for that. Very wise. I think they heard us talking. Number 7, we can move on consent. Number 8 on consent. Wait a minute. Number 8, we have Portia Lee. Oh, wise. You'll beat the traffic. So that's item 8. Item 9, we can move on consent. Yes, see no card, so those items we can move on consent. $11 is special, $12 is special, and $13 no report. $10 is special, we have quite a few cards on that one. Now, let's see. Item 10. We'll take items out of order, and we'll move on item 10 now. Can I have the staff report? So all those items have been moved and seconded for consent? Okay. The clerk is fine with that? I'm assuming yes?
Yes.
Okay. Please.
Good afternoon, council members. Maya Zetsevsky, Zone Administrator of Record. The case before you is ZA 2010-552-ZV. This was a request for a variance for 4 parkings located off-site in lieu of having a lease agreement in lieu of a covenant. This was in conjunction with the operation of Magnolia Bakery on 3rd Street. The parking spaces were going to be provided at the Beverly connection using the 3rd Street valet parking program. I denied the request because there was confusion about how many parking spaces were actually needed for the bakery. When you add tables and allow people to consume food outside, it goes from being a retail use with a retail parking calculation to a restaurant use. And so it was unclear whether it was up to 19 spaces were required as opposed to the 4 or 5 the applicant stated in the application. There was some opposition from community members regarding that they felt there was no special circumstances, that applicant did not have demonstrate a hardship or practical difficulty to justify the variance. And finally, there was a number of outdoor seats on the public right-of-way and on their property, about 20 to 40 seats that were kind of going to be a problem on the outside. The case was my denial was appealed by the applicant, and the Central Area Planning Commission, after 2 hearings, overturned my denial and granted the parking variance. I'm here in support of their approval of the variance, but I'd like you to consider some special. Can you hear me? You're looking at me funny. Okay. I'd like you to consider some circumstances that have changed since my determination and since the APC hearing regarding this property and the application. The things that have changed have been that the applicant has changed the retail component of the store. He's increased it and reduced the restaurant portion of the store so that they now, according to building safety only, are required 1 parking space instead of the 4 that was originally required. Their outdoor seating has been eliminated, and the City Council has been out to the site, and it's operating as a bakery without seats right now, and they have felt that, the council office has felt it hasn't been a big impact to the community having the bakery. They thought it was going to be sort of a, really, really popular destination for people, and it's been, popular but not overwhelming the community. When the APC overturned my decision, they used the applicant's findings to do so, and I'm presenting today revised findings for you to adopt if you care to. I think that they include the new information that's come forward, and I think it's better than what was adopted by the APC. Mark Bevilacqua from Building and Safety is here if you have any questions about the parking calculation, the change in parking.
Right.
And then I'm going to recommend, if you sustain the APC's decision, that you modify some conditions that were included. I would recommend that you state that no seats are located in the private or public right-of-way, so no outdoor seating, except the revised Exhibit A dated April 25th, and change the grant from 4 off-site spaces to 1 off-site space, and then put a condition that there's a maximum of 7 indoor seats.
So these new additional conditions reflect the change in what has occurred since the APC?
Correct.
Okay, I want to make sure I heard that clearly. Any questions for staff? Yes. Question?
Originally, there was a application for a variance to permit 4 parking spaces. And now, because of their change in their actual project, they will only be required to have 1, but does that mean they no longer need the variance?
You can ask the applicant to clarify. They have 1 space on site, but I'm not sure if it's for their exclusive use. I believe they're still going forward with the variance, but just for 1 space. But they're still providing 4 off-site. So they're still continuing to going to have 4 valet parking spaces available at the Beverly connection. But at this moment, it appears they only need 1, and I would ask for clarification of whether that's satisfied on-site. And they would not, in that case, they would not need the variance.
They would not need the variance. So what other approvals, discretionary approvals, are they asking for other than this?
That was the only one, yeah.
So why are we going through this procedure?
This all just happened, that the revised plans were just submitted, so I haven't had a chance to speak to the applicant to confirm. But I'm assuming that they need to have the 1 off-site space.
Okay, but they applied for a variance, they've changed the project, they no longer need the variance. Why are we going to give them a variance if they no longer need the variance?
We need to clarify whether they have that 1 space on site for their exclusive use. Otherwise, yes, they do not need the variance.
Okay, thanks.
So, before we go into the appellant's statement, it behooves us to clarify what we are focused on. And so, is the applicant here to clarify what is in front of us, given the nature of this ambiguity?
Good evening, good afternoon, council members. Elizabeth Peterson, applicant's representative. We are still providing 4 off-site parking spaces through the universal parking program and a valet stand. We do have 1 off-site parking space required. The parking space that is there is not exclusively for our use, and it's actually not completely to code parking.
So you are still asking for a variance?
Correct.
Okay.
For what?
To provide 1 parking space off-site via lease in lieu of covenant at the Beverly connection.
Okay. Now, let me ask the city attorney and the planning department. Now, this project was changed in the middle of this application. So it's a new project. Does this application still stand, or what? I'm a bit confused about this.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused like you are. It's just happened. I guess my concern would be, has it changed so substantially that it's a different project, so it's not adequately described on the notice? Yeah. And then also my concern would be that staff and the applicant specifically tell you what the variance is being asked for. And so I think we need delineation on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit leery that, number 1, our own staff is not sure of what the change is, and number 2, there have been 2 other people who reviewed this, 2 other entities, the Planning Commission and the Zoning Administrator as originally proposed. Now, are we now discussing a different project altogether? That concerns me as well, this ambiguity.
Well, I have a suggestion. You might want to table this for the immediate moment and let staff confer with the applicant, and then they can come back and perhaps they can clarify it for you, or if not, continue it.
Well, let's do the first. Let's table this. Let's get some clarity so that we can have sound, solid ground to stand on.
Good idea.
And once we have that sense of confidence, then we can determine, do we continue this or not? But I want to get a feel that we're standing on solid ground. Good. And right now it's a little shaky.
Yes, good idea.
Okay, so we're gonna basically table this. Can the city attorney and or the staff come forward and let's answer these questions and make a decision whether we're going to continue this, or do we have enough clarity to move forward on solid ground? Okay, so we're going to table this for right now.
Okay.
And can you speak to the city attorney and come back with a recommendation to continue this or move forward? Thank you, Councilman, for those questions.
No, we don't have a new city attorney listening to our other proceedings.
Right.
Gotta be careful about that.
Okay. So don't go too far, Mr. City Attorney. We still got a committee to conduct. All right. Exciting days. So let's go to item 1.
Item number 1 is a proposed ordinance to require some form of perforated steel to secure vacant properties pursuant to a motion, Wesson Smith.
And can we have the staff report on this? We'll just refer this to the city attorney then. And we'll move to prepare the ordinance in consultation with the Department of Building and Safety. So that'll be the action of this committee.
Yes, second.
Okay, that's a second. And item number 2?
Item number 2,
I'm sorry, just to clarify. They'll report back to Plum in 60 days on item 1?
Yes, and you know, I kind of jumped the gun because I have a card on this one. So Andrew Westall, on item 1, you filled out a card. I want to make sure I acknowledge you. You okay? All right. So the question was?
This is a report back in 60 days to Plum.
Yes.
Okay.
as well as prepare an ordinance.
And prepare an ordinance as well. Okay, and item number 2?
Item number 2 is Planning Department report on relative to the feasibility of allowing nonprofits to obtain a permit by right for farmers markets in the R residential zone.
Great. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Tom Rothman from the Planning Department. We're here today with a report back as requested by a recent council motion by Councilmember Wesson on the feasibility of allowing farmers markets by right in the residential zones, and our project manager will be doing the presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Sanchez, and this is a report back on the motion made by Wesson. The report requested a report that discussed the feasibility of allowing farmers markets by right in residential zones. The department is not recommending that they be by right in all residential zones. However, we are recommending that there be a new conditional use for farmers markets in all residential zones, as well as a new public benefit for farmers markets in all other zones. The public benefit will require performance standards, which will be the existing requirements under the ZAD process, as well as an additional performance standard with that regards public parking and parking for vendors at the farmers markets.
So the recommendation includes protections
Yes.
that allows stakeholders to understand what's being proposed in residential zones, and all other zones, we have a series of processes that the stakeholders can also engage to make sure that issues of access, safety, traffic are being addressed.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from my colleague? Okay. Well, thank you for that report. I think that's well thought out. And let's go to public comment cards, and we'll go from there. We have with us Haldis Topol, Jim Queston, and Phyllis Hardy. You got 2 minutes. Keep your eye on the clock. Some of you have written very eloquent letters. Sometimes we go over the 2 minutes, so we get to your point as quick as possible. That would allow us to deliberate and take into consideration your input.
Thank you very much. My name is Haldis Topol. I represent the Pacific Palisades Community Council. We strongly oppose the creation of a by-right permit process for nonprofit markets in residential zones. While we recognize the benefit of providing more outlets for fresh food in underserved communities, as the intent is of the motion, we're very concerned about the weakening of long-standing protections for residential neighborhoods citywide. Substantial caution should be exercised before initiating new streamlined procedures applicable to all residential zones for special uses not otherwise permitted. whether by means of a conditional use permit, benefit process, or otherwise. We request sufficient time to investigate and comment on any proposal for a draft ordinance in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker, Jim McQuiston, then Phyllis Hardy.
Jim McQuiston, you have my statement on this. I think it's pretty clear. Basically, we have a problem with farmers markets, but it's not just farmers markets. It's commercial activity in a residential zone, and our zoning code says we shouldn't do that. We've arrested people for doing so. And the problem is that we want to have a zoning code which people trust. And in order to do that, we have to enforce the zoning code. If we find that the zoning code, because of the sub-areas, is not zoned properly, then we should change the zones and allow the commercial activity. There are great areas in the San Fernando Valley, for example, that were developed en masse as residential zones. You have to go miles and miles just to go to the market. So there are problems with the zones that we have, but we don't want to give people a special benefit because that's unconstitutional. So what we have to do is say, well, okay, we'll let everybody in that particular little sub-area do this particular thing. That would be okay, but just to carve out a space for one particular market or something like that, we can't do that. That more or less kills the idea of zoning in the first place. And that's basically my thrust.
Thank you, Mr. McQuiston. Our next speaker, Phyllis Hardy. Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you, Phyllis Hardy. I'll be brief. First, I want to agree with Haldis and with Mr. McQuiston both, so I won't repeat that part. But I reside in two areas, Echo Park and Highland Park. I maintain residences in both. We have wonderful farmers markets in each. We don't really need more, and the competition to our small local markets that we have there will be devastating if people are allowed to just come in and set up these commercial enterprises, because they're really struggling. At the corner of Burlington Echo Park, that family with their twins are there from 6 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, just trying to make a living. We don't need any more competition immediately. We have had some people set up farmers market type things, and we have been plagued with roaches and rodents throughout our area. So I really request that you take this very, very seriously into consideration on the impact that it will have on any community, and especially our lower economic communities where we like to shop close to home. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Representing the council office, Mr. Westall. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee member. Andrew Westall, Assistant Chief Deputy with Councilmember Wesson's office. The reason we brought this forward is because we have only one farmer's market in a food desert area in our district that is in a residential zone, but it is a church parking lot just off of Washington Boulevard. And so in investigating this process and realizing that many farmers markets in the city have various zoning issues, we wanted to really delve into this and try to find a way that we could not necessarily make it by right, but make an easier process to allow this sort of activity to take place in a place that was appropriate, as I said, in a church parking lot, which just happens to be a residential zone. And it's difficult to find a balance on this particular issue that's really a citywide balance, but I think the Planning Department report has done a good way of setting up really two processes, one the public benefit process and for areas that this makes sense, and then providing another process which is a discretionary process for areas that it does not. It was never our intention to bring farmers markets deep into residential zones, but as I said, this is an anomaly in the zoning code and in the zoning map, and we wanted to resolve this problem. And so with that, we are in support of the staff report and would like to see this move forward. Thank you.
And I appreciate your statement and your comments. And given the firewalls, if you will, that are built into the proposed language, it does allow for stakeholders in the area with a 500-foot radius notice to understand what's being proposed so that there is a genuine decision-making process where the stakeholders can participate and determine if they want a farmer's market or not. Like the district you represent, I have food deserts in my area, and if it were not for farmers markets in certain pockets, access to nutritional vegetables, fruits that otherwise are inaccessible, I mean, they would have to travel distances. And these are usually neighborhoods that are at or below poverty at a 40% rate, and so it's pretty stark. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I thank you for Councilman Weston for moving this forward and allowing us to have this discussion and this policy debate.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir. When the farmers markets would, I mean, they would have to be properly permitted as a farmers market, correct? There's a separate procedure so that certain operations qualify under certain criteria that they are certified farmers market, correct?
Correct.
And they would have to go through this. So it's not going to be like someone's going to just put up a swap meet, and it's going to be a certified farmers market that provides fresh produce. They may have other stands there, but the main gist of these farmers markets is to provide fresh produce in what some call, what do they call them? Desert, what?
Food desert.
Food deserts, thank you. And I think I'm a huge proponent of farmers markets. In fact, it was our goal in our district to start 2 new ones in 2 separate neighborhoods, one in Boa Heights and one in El Sereno. Every Friday afternoon, these places are filled with people loading up on fresh fruits and vegetables that they otherwise would be difficult for them to obtain or not as easily accessible, or simply some people go there because they like the organic fruits and vegetables that it's difficult to find in their local supermarket. So this is a great thing, I think, and I think it's a difficult balance citywide because different needs, not every neighborhood's the same throughout the city, but overall I think it does balance the needs of the local residents with the need to provide more farmers markets. So this is a good thing, and I applaud Mr. Weston for this. Thanks.
This last point, and I'm saying this for the record, we're not approving enabling language. We're not approving enabling language that takes away the ability for residential zone to stay residential. It's not like a farmer's market could now pop up anywhere in the residential zone. That is not the case. That there are steps that need to be taken, consensus building, and stakeholders are involved, and a decision will be made based on that process. I want to be very clear for the record as is being recommended. Welcome, Councilman Krikorian. We are on item number 2. We just heard from the staff a process for allowing for farmers markets to exist in the city. And there's 2 recommendations. The creation of a new conditional use for farmers markets in residential zones. And recommendation 2, the creation of a new public benefit for farmers markets in non-residential zones, allowing these uses to be located by right in agricultural, commercial, manufacturing zones with appropriate performance standards will encourage replacement parts of the city that can accommodate them with increasing access to fresh produce. And Councilman Weston's staff just briefed us on their intent to address food desert areas, access to nutritional produce, and I believe the staff has given a report that achieves that goal. So are we ready to move this? Moved in second.
And I thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize. I just completed Jobs Committee, but my staff gave me an update. Your summary, I think, addresses the concerns I had about the original motion, which were the imposition on residential neighborhoods. I think that seems to have been dealt with by these recommendations, and I'm happy to support it for the important policy reasons that Mr. Huizar just described.
Great, so we'll move on that item, and congratulations to the staff. Thank you very much. Okay, did we achieve an understanding, Mr. City Attorney, on the shaky ground?
Well, I think we clarified what the project is, so if you'd like to bring that back.
Maya, can you like to come up? Please introduce yourself.
What number again is this?
It's number 10.
Good afternoon, Maya Zaitsevsky. I'm Roberto. So to clarify, where we left off was that I had originally denied the variance for 4 parking spaces. One of the reasons being for this bakery was because it was unclear the total number of parking spaces were required. Is it a restaurant? Is it a restaurant and retail? Okay, so at this point, we got yesterday a revised Exhibit A from the applicant, and I called Ken Gillum, Mark Bevilacqua from Building and Safety to confirm that they agreed with the new floor plan and the allocation of space, and they did. And so right now we have one required parking space, one space that's required. They have one space that they can use, but it's not their exclusive parking space, and it's not to code. So they still need to provide it off-site and by lease agreement. So instead of 4 off-site parking spaces, which was the original request, it's 1 off-site. However, as the applicant's representative stated, they will still be providing 4 off-site parking spaces. So they are only required 1, providing 4. And so I think that is a mitigating circumstance to the, that wasn't considered when I denied the project. The APC was told that, but it wasn't, the concrete plans were not submitted at the time the APC made the decision. That's why the findings need to be revised and additional conditions imposed on the project.
So do we have an appeal to a variance?
Yes.
So we move forward as if we are addressing the appellant to the requested variance.
Yeah. So the size of the bakery hasn't changed. It's still the same size bakery, fewer parking spaces needed, and it's a variance for off-site parking.
And
so nothing significantly has changed. It's been reduced.
The question raised by Councilman Huizar, does this remain a consistent application given the changes of the described project?
City Attorney here, Deputy City Attorney Ken Fogg. My understanding is that the request is now lesser in intensity, so therefore there wouldn't be a notice issue, because actually the notice that was given was for a potentially greater variance. Staff can correct me on that.
That's correct.
Okay, that is correct. And so I guess what's happened now is now they have more clarity on the exact variance that's needed, and it's actually a lesser intense variance.
So we could move forward?
Yes.
And to be clarified, the variance they are now asking for is to have 1 off-site parking as opposed to on-site.
1 off-site instead of 4 off-site.
That's what they're asking for, yes. one off-site instead of 4 off-site.
Correct.
Okay. And before it was what?
4.
Okay, they're asking for 1 off-site instead of 4 off-site.
Correct.
And the original variance was to ask for what?
4 off-site spaces. The number of spaces they need has reduced from 4 spaces to 1 parking space based on the change to the floor plan. But the overall scope of the project has not changed. The size of the tenant space hasn't changed. It was just when building safety confirmed their retail versus their restaurant uses, the parking requirement has been reduced from 4 spaces to 1. Always off-site. It's always been off-site.
Okay. Let's do this one more time. The original variance asked for what?
For 4 off-site parking spaces by lease agreement instead of a covenant.
Instead of the covenant, right? Okay. And now the new one,
One off-site parking space by lease agreement in lieu of covenant.
okay, thanks.
But they will actually provide 4.
Okay.
They're not required to.
Okay. All right. So let's hear from the appellant. The appellant on this case.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Robert Chernow. I'm a land use consultant representing Beverly Welcher Homes Association. I'm a little bothered that I was kept in the dark here on these changes. As a matter of fact, they asked me to leave the meeting in there. As the appellant, I'm entitled to know of the changes so that I can appropriately represent my clients, and I find it appalling that I was not able to even be part of that discussion, and it kind of indicates the way that this has been handled. I'd like to point out, first of all, we are still dealing with a zoning variance, and the requirements of a zoning variance are very clear. There are 5 findings that are required to be made, regardless of the amount of parking. As a matter of fact, we were told it was 7 parking spaces, not 4, that were originally needed by the Department of Building and Safety Engineering section. So there's still a question as to the correct amount. Nothing has changed at this location. As far as making changes, they're claiming there's more retail. In fact, we didn't see any changes out there when I was out there over the weekend taking pictures. They were given a notice to comply because they had people in there eating when it's supposed to be takeout only. They continue to have people in there eating. I've seen no changes there. As far as this requirement for a lease agreement, in fact, it requires a 1-year lease agreement. You have a copy of that. In fact, this is not a lease agreement. It is an assignment agreement. It has no terms whatsoever. It has no determination how long it is to last or when it can be terminated. It isn't worth the paper it's written on. Your requirements and the conditions set forth here, Condition 8 requires, again, that it be exclusive parking for a minimum of 1 year, and the lease that, in fact, they have provided is not a lease agreement. It is not exclusive, and as a matter of fact, I went down to the location over the weekend and started taking pictures. There is a plan for where the location of these parking spaces is. It's called the Beverly Connection. As part of a civil suit agreement that was worked out years ago, there was supposed to be 100 parking spaces set aside that were to be used for the surrounding community businesses. This is one of the locations that, in fact, they claim that they're using this location on. You have in front of you that plan there, which is for 100 parking spaces. I went down there, and in fact, the entire parking spaces of 100 are being used for a car repair facility. The entire parking lot is filled, and I have pictures here to establish that, with cars that are from this body repair shop. So there are 0 parking spaces available, so they don't even meet the minimum requirements here for it. We are asking that, number one, that the findings have to be made pertaining to zoning variance. They cannot be made here. The Supreme Court of the State of California made it very clear that they must make those 5 findings regardless of the amount of parking. It cannot be made here, so you are clearly bound by the law to deny it based on that alone. But the fact that they do not have the required parking, they don't have a lease agreement, indicates to me that I am very bothered by the fact that the zoning administrator is not supporting that case, especially when she's aware of the terrible parking problem that my clients have in this neighborhood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Elizabeth Peterson? Did I call you? Come on up.
Gentlemen, Diana Plotkin, President of the Beverly Welcher Homes Association. Thank you very much.
That means overtime. Let's get it.
I think that our appeal stands on its own. I'm sorry to say that we've already filed a lawsuit against the city with regard to these parking variances. We've uncovered hundreds of cases that you have let go by that do not meet the findings, that are all illegal. It amazes me that none of you can find that this is illegal when they simply do not meet the findings that are required by law. And we are asking you to support our appeal and to not deny these people. They do not meet the findings. And the law will be broken if you decide to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plotkin. Elizabeth Peterson?
Council members, Elizabeth Peterson. We respectfully request that you support the Area Planning Commission's approval of our variance, originally issued December 7th, 2010, and reissued January 20th, 2011. There was a typographical error. Under ZA 2010 552ZV1A. We believe that the Area Planning Commission concurred that the variance and findings are appropriate to support the approval for the variance to provide 4 off-site parking spaces, only required 1 at the Beverly connection. We work very carefully on this case. The square footage of the bakery has never changed throughout the entire process. We always provided 4 off-site parking spaces via lease at the Beverly connection, so that request has never changed. The only change is that the square footage of the mixture of retail to restaurant was finally confirmed with Building and Safety after, I think, about 17 different meetings to do so. We know that the universal parking program is the future of Los Angeles parking. Paul Koretz has worked very, very carefully to make sure that the parking spaces at the Beverly connection are dedicated. They're actually dedicated in a CPC case to the parking. It is working exceptionally well for residents and business owners in this community. We also know that this bakery is busy from 12 noon until 7 p.m. during the week and about 12 noon till 8 p.m. on the weekends, which is an off balance of the restaurants on 3rd Street. So it's also a very, very good use. We too have photos of the Beverly connection showing massive amounts of vacant parking in there. The 100 spaces are here. We have Mott Smith, who activates the universal parking program for the 3rd Street business owners. It's been a lifeline for 3rd Street. It's one of the few areas in the city that is really working well. The residents are very much in support of Magnolia Bakery. There are 4 Magnolia Bakeries in New York and 1 in Dubai, and they're very community-based. And we also lost about 10 of our employees of 35 due to the inability to have some people have cupcakes on site. It's only 7 seats, and to be able to eat a cupcake on site, we feel is an appropriate business model for a bakery.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Serena Parker? Rachel Ortega? And Orly Kolowi, I believe. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Serena Porter. I'm one of the managers at Magnolia Bakery. I've been working with the bakery since 2008. I moved out here last year, and it's really important because we are a community-based bakery that we have seating for our customers. I live in the neighborhood. I walk to work every day. And I just, once again, I think it's really important to make sure that when people come in, they can sit down, they can eat, and enjoy what we have for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Ortega, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm a resident and a former employee of Magnolia, and I would really appreciate going to a bakery and being able to sit down and enjoy something that I've purchased that took in the time to walk. And I just think it's just a simple matter that shouldn't cause so much, I would just really appreciate to have seating in a place that is a place where you want to go. A lot of customers come in and ask, like, why don't you have seating? And, you know, it'd be great if you did, because I'd really love to enjoy what I just bought to be within the business. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Orly Kalue. Once again, I too walk to work. It is a fabulous place. It's a community place. There are families that come in every day with their kids that live in the area, drive in the area. It's a destination spot. It's people walk around. They love to sit and eat. It's unfortunate that we can't offer seating to people that just want to come with their families and have a cupcake and enjoy the area. And it also provides a lot of foot traffic to local, other businesses. So, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, ma'am. Mott Smith? Is Mott Smith here?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Mott Smith. I'm a consultant to the West 3rd Street Parking and Public Improvement Association. I provide program management services for the valet parking program. And I just wanted to clear up some of the misstatements you might have heard. The West 3rd Street parking program's access is to 100 spaces at the Beverly connection, not a particular 100 spaces. So it's not like space number 1, that's for the program, space number 2, that's not. We're always guaranteed access for at least 100 cars. You might have, I'm not sure if you've seen on Black Friday, the busiest shopping day of the year, the Beverly Connection at 11 a.m. had over 800 available parking spaces. At 2 p.m. had over 600 available parking spaces. So there's absolutely no shortage of parking. Furthermore, because it's part of the Universal Valet program, we control several parking facilities in the area, and the customer volume at Magnolia has been slow enough that we've actually been able to park all the customer cars at other facilities we control without even having to go to the Beverly Connection for the most part. So I'm not here in support or in opposition to the appeal or to the application. I just wanted to provide that information on the parking program. Thanks very much.
Thank you for that clarification. Elizabeth Dehaven and Barbara Petraka, or Bobby. Good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Dehaven. I'm the production manager for Magnolia Bakery. I've been working with Magnolia Bakery since 2004. I also, along with Serena Porter, moved out here about a year ago to be a part of the opening of this Los Angeles location. I've been a part of all the openings of Magnolia Bakery over the past few years. Coming out here, I saw the neighborhood that the bakery was in, and I immediately fell in love with it and wanted to be a part of this community and this neighborhood. I too live in the neighborhood very close by. What is terrible to see, because I've been a part of Magnolia Bakery for so long, is to see this place suffer due to a few parking spaces and lack of seating. Coming out here not knowing anybody and working with the staff and having them become a part of what we like to refer to as a Magnolia family, and seeing them trying to support their families, support themselves, and due again to the lack of a few parking spaces or supposedly and variances and ordinances that I personally don't understand what you guys are talking about, but just seeing it firsthand, it's really devastating to not be able to be a functioning part of the community. Every single person that walks into the bakery says, "This is crazy. You guys don't have seating? This is crazy. This is crazy." The Beverly Welcher Homes Association does not represent me as a neighbor and as a resident. They don't represent any of my neighbors that I've spoken to, and they don't represent the overall feeling of the neighborhood.
You are a production manager?
I am the production manager. I'm in charge of making all the food.
So do you have empanadas?
Not on me.
Okay, I just
Come by
want to
sometime.
know what line of bakery goods you have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon.
I'm Barbara Petraka. I'm the operating partner for Magnolia Bakery. I live in New York City. I don't live in this community, but I did come out here with my partner to search for locations. And one of the biggest factors for choosing this spot was it's a real community. We didn't want to be in a mall. We wanted to be in a neighborhood, as are all of our stores in New York City. We're also a kosher bakery, and I think that we are, the location we have chosen definitely meets the needs of the immediate community. We're not asking for much. We just want to have a place where people can come in, enjoy their pastry, meet with their families, hang out for a few minutes. It doesn't take long to eat cake, and then they go on their way. It is, from what I can see, it's a walking neighborhood. I sat outside this morning for 2 hours. I sat outside yesterday for 3.5 hours and watched the neighborhood. There's a lot of moms with baby strollers. So that's all I have to say, really.
It's a lot of sugar. All right.
Thank you.
We have, I believe it's Sakaida and Vanilla Galarza.
Hi, I'm Saga Beatty. Nice to meet you all.
Good afternoon.
I'm an employee at Magnolia Bakery as well as a resident of the community. When I found out that Magnolia was coming to the community, I was so excited. I know about them from New York, super excited. And when I found out that they were hiring, even more excited. But the hardest thing is seeing people walk into our bakery, turn around because of the fact we don't have seats. You know, you don't know how many times a day we're like, we want to eat here, but you guys don't have seats, so we're going to go somewhere else, you know. And trying to help people and trying to explain to them why we don't have seating, they just don't get it, which I don't get it either. But and I think it would benefit our community, our company, everybody. And yeah, so I think I don't see why we can't have seating, because it's the best idea for us to have seating. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you for taking the time. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Daniela Galarza. I'm a neighborhood resident. I've lived there for over 4 years, so even before Magnolia Bakery moved into the neighborhood, and I'd never had a problem parking even before I would visit West 3rd Street. I used to park on the street and or in the Beverly connection. There's plenty of parking in there. I've never had a problem finding parking space in there. And I also, now that I live in the neighborhood, walk to the bakery and would like to be able to sit down and enjoy a piece of cake. I understand there are laws about how much parking a restaurant needs to have in the neighborhood in order to operate with seating, but I think that Mott's program with the parking system is working just fine.
Okay. Our last speaker is Christopher Coons, representing the district office. District 5. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, council members, Chairman Reyes, Christopher Kuntz on behalf of Paul Koretz, Council District 5. I just want to frame the issues as simply as possible. There's been a lot of testimony. What we're talking about is a bakery being able to have seats for their customers. What we're talking about is providing parking by lease rather than covenant. If this was opening a new business with no parking whatsoever, this wouldn't be something we supported. We support this application because the parking does exist, the program works, and it's not an unreasonable request so that this retail space can work and so that we don't tear down this building, which is a 1930s building, which buildings of that age don't have enough parking on site, but they're beautiful architectural buildings, and we'd prefer not to say, make it unusable, no, you can't have seats, no, you can't do this, tear it down. This was the best solution possible, and we support this variance request. I've been to the site. The councilman lives in the neighborhood. He's been to the site. There are no problems with this business. We don't get complaints about noise. We don't get complaints about trash. We get emails and phone calls from people that want to enjoy this bakery, and from some people that don't want it to succeed. So that's the position we're in. And
Is he walking distance from the bakery?
Yes.
Oh, he's in danger.
Yeah, dangerous.
He's in trouble. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any comments, recommendations?
Yes, some issues were raised by the appellant on the findings. Just want to ask the city attorney, given the procedures that the city uses in granting these types of variances, it's often that the findings are pretty loose in terms of, making it hang on something. In this instance, have you reviewed the findings? Do they stand legal mustard?
Well, I've been
mustard. Mustard, right?
Are you hungry?
You're correct, Councilman. The findings for variance are quite stringent, and it's up to you to go through them and to determine whether you think that this existing building, because it's already existing, whether there can be a finding of hardship made that would justify a variance. And I noticed that in the staff report they had noted that a variance of this type has never been denied for similar properties. I haven't looked at those cases, but again, you look at each case individually and you go through the findings, and mostly you have to concentrate, are there special circumstances? Is there a unique hardship? Is this property unique enough that we are going to deviate from the code? And that's what you have to ask yourself. And staff clarified that the variance that's being requested is for one parking space rather than the 4. So that's basically what's before you. Are you going to allow them to have the one off-site through lease, or require them to have an on-site with a covenant?
Gotcha. So in terms of the changes that were proposed, most of them were verbal, or is there some written documentation that will document whatever we're voting on here today, since the project has been changed?
Maya Setsevsky. I submitted revised findings, revised conditions of approval, and a revised site plan with the clerk.
Okay. And you originally opposed this variance and the CPC voted to grant it. Given the new changes, would your opposition still stand?
Would my main problem was that as a decision maker, I have to know what I'm deciding upon. And it was completely unclear how many spaces they needed. There was a lot of statements that it was this, it was that, but when I'm writing my findings and making sure I can support something, I need to know what the numbers are, do the math. If you want to have Mark Bevilacqua come up from Building and Safety, just for the record, to explain how we went from point A to point B, I think that might be helpful to you, a quick explanation for it. But when I held my original hearing and made my decision to deny it, the main thing was based on the fact that the parking requirement was very unclear. And then as far as that it's a smaller variance than what was originally proposed, because, as Mr. Fong said, I did research to see have other variances for a similar type thing. Restaurants frequently on 3rd Street have parking variances because they're all older buildings that don't have adequate parking for those type of uses. I couldn't find any that had been denied. So it would be sort of putting the applicant in an unfair position, because now that it's fewer spaces that are required, and in all these other spaces or these other projects, more intense projects, have been approved variances for off-site parking. I think it would be, could be considered unfair to deny it at this point. And the fact that it's not this huge, crazy bakery that the neighborhood council was concerned. There's going to be all these outdoor seats, tons of people are going to visit, and it just hasn't turned out to be that. They're trying to make it into a local sort of bakery that people can come and sit inside. It's 7 seats inside, nothing outside. So as conditioned and with the revised findings, I think the findings are adequate now.
So you think the findings are adequate now, and you would no longer deny it?
Right.
You keep hesitating.
Well, it's not before me anymore. My ship has sailed as far as this. So I'm here in defense of the Area Planning Commission's their decision, and I think it has improved from what they saw because there is a lot more clarity with the parking than even what they had before them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, the fact that mostly folks have spoken, at least the ones that were supporting, are employees that are walking distance, is very encouraging. The classic jobs, housing balance. That being said, I'd like to move to deny the appeal by Robert Chernow on behalf of the Beverly Welcher Home Association, and move with the recommendations, given that we have new recommendations that have been introduced and been reviewed by the staff. Mr. City Attorney, what would be the appropriate language given we went through this adjustment? I want to make sure for the record we're stating the appropriate language if there is a second.
Well, maybe you could have Maya Tchaikovsky come up here and just, as you make the motion, to make sure that everything is accurate. My impression is that the variance is just for the one off-site. And let's see. Maya, maybe it would be helpful if you read what you thought the motion should be, and then they can incorporate it by reference. I think sometimes that's easier.
Okay.
Maya Zaitsevsky, Planning. I believe you're granting in part and denying in part the appeal because you're changing the findings, adopting additional conditions, and you are revising the site plan.
Yes, I think that's correct. And just clarifying that it's only for the variance for the one
off-site. Yeah, condition number. Let's see. I added a condition. Condition number 7's been modified to state approved herein as a variance from Municipal Code Section 1226E5 to permit 4 parking spaces through a lease agreement in lieu of a recorded covenant. And in parentheses, only 1 parking space is required in conjunction with an existing bakery and a maximum of 7 indoor seats. And then I added no outdoor seating in the public or private right-of-way is permitted. So that's also a new condition. And revising the Exhibit A.
So that encompasses the extent of the overall action of this committee based on this hearing.
Correct.
Okay.
And if I could ask the city attorney then, there are legal standards that we use when we grant a variance, uniqueness of the property, et cetera. The appellants in this case brought up a very good point in that the city, and it was stated in the report, that we consistently grant these types of variances to neighboring properties. And so are we following those standards or not? And are we open to litigation in those types of instances?
Well, it's always a difficult road to travel, and that's why you're in those seats and I'm over here. But I would say that in an ideal world, you would just do all of this by legislation, and there would be no need for variances, because every time something happens, if only you had the ability to act swiftly enough to amend your legislation every time something happened and have it adequately address the issues, but realistically that doesn't happen. And so from time to time you are presented with the need to look at a variance, and that's why the findings for a variance are so stringent, because it forces you to actually ask yourself, do we want to grant an exception from our code? And if you can make the findings, then you're able to do that. And, that's my role. I just constantly remind you and other members of the council that you have to go through those findings. But, if you can make them, and if staff is satisfied, then it's proper to grant variances. I wouldn't say that you should do them all the time, and that's why you need to go through those findings.
Okay.
Okay, so we have an action before us. We have a second. Second? Are you in support? Or that's a yeah. So that's 3, 4, and that's the action of this committee. Thank you very much. And next item?
Item number 3. Item number 3 is consideration of a motion, these are correct, relative to instructing the planning department to report with recommendations on the city's options in addressing the community's concerns over the approval of the conversion from a senior retirement home to an adult residential facility of Perry Village, which is located at 3455 Percy Street in Boyle Heights.
Okay, I've just been notified that we are going to continue on for 2 weeks. So that'll be our action. We'll continue that item for 2 weeks. Next item.
Next item is item 11. Item 11 is consideration of a appeal filed by Benjamin Williams, Silmar Homeowners Association Council, relative to a conditional use to permit a public charter high school with 56 parking spaces at 13245 Hubbard Street in Council District 7.
Can I have the staff report, please?
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Jay Kim, and I was the hearing officer for this case. As mentioned, the appellant is appealing a proposed public charter high school that would accommodate 500 students. And the commission heard this case in December 16th. There were some outstanding issues, and they had decided to continue this case to January 27th. And based on some of the concerns that were raised as well at the deliberation, and the applicant had come back and addressing those issues, the commission included some of the additional items such as outdoor seating areas, additional bicycle parking, some unclarity in terms of the pedestrian route to mission college that they would use in terms of the recreational services, and also maintaining the sustainable features such as compliance with the LEED certification. In doing so, the Commission approved this case, and what is before you is the appeal. The appellants have appealed a number of items concerning some of the items that were already mentioned at the Commission and resolved. They are appealing some of the items are traffic, some are procedural items. A bulk of it is based on the continued Commission hearing when the case was heard. It was after the Welcher Grand project. Some of the people had to wait quite a few hours, and they feel like they had to wait quite a bit in order to get 1 or 2 minutes in terms of speaking time. There's some other procedural items that are in there. In lieu of going through all of the items that are listed here, I could answer any questions if you would like. But staff is recommending that the committee deny the appeal and sustain the Commission's action in approving the project.
Any questions for our staff on this item? If not, okay, we'll go on to public comment. Thank you, sir. Don't go too far. So we have an appellant on this case. The appellant, please come to the microphone. Person appealing this case. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Honorable Councilman. Pleased to be here today. I'm Benjamin Williams, and I am the president of the Sylmar Homeowners Council. I represent 72,500 people in that neighborhood. And we don't take this case lightly at all. We've been working on this case way back in December, and they kept sending us back home. They kept sending the charter school back home. You got to improve this, you got to improve this, and they never improved anything. And we're basing our argument on Campus USA failed to obtain the required permit from the Los Angeles Unified School District in the first place to even have made an application there. They never got a permit from the LAUSD. They failed to obtain LEED processes there that's required by all builders, and this deals with required certification of A, silver, gold, B. And also, they have those exhibits there in front of you. They committed many illegal oversights required by federal mandates and statutes, along with non-compliance under Title II of the American with Disabilities. None of those are inside of their plans. Number 4, they failed to include its charter school proposal in an emergency evacuation for its faculty, students, and visitors. It failed to include state-mandated physical education requirements for students. It failed to include state-mandated health and safety environment for food that's brought to the schools by students. It doesn't at all have a community impact statement submitted in this plan. It also failed to consider the heavy, dangerous, and congested traffic in front of the proposed charter school, which makes the location unfit for such small land area. In an attempt to try to put 500 high school students in.
Please continue.
Therefore, our appeal that's on file here today clearly shows the LA City Land Use Commissioners abdicated their roles and duties by approving the Campus USA Inc. charter school without properly, fairly, and legally considering all written evidence and oral testimony presented to them by residents and associates of Sylmar, California. And this is unconscionable and morally wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Daniel P. Catton. And then we'll have Lisa Hoke, I believe. I'm trying to read the writing. And then Eugene Hernandez. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. I can't really say anything that hasn't been said already. My property, my backyard is directly matches up to this lot that they want to put a high school on. I'm opposed to this charter school. It's obviously only going to increase traffic on an already congested street and intersection. That'll reduce my home values as well as the home values surrounding me. I'm also opposed to a charter school which already has a college, a high school, and an elementary school all within a 2,000-foot radius. This is already a heavily congested area, so congested right now that during the week, there's no parking for over a block in any direction from the college. I feel that any legitimate environmental study would clearly show that this is an unsuitable location for a high school of any kind. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi, gentlemen. I'm going to have to speak quickly because we had so much material prepared in addition to our brilliant appeal. Regarding the hearing procedures that he refers to, we would point out to the fact that the various Los Angeles City Planning Commissioners in audio, as cited in the appeal, told Jay Kim that the hearing officer should have been held to a higher standard of preparation, that in fact the project was not in a condition to be approved on the final day. We refer you specifically to the comments of Diego, who is a commissioner, who entirely reduced the staff operations officer's preparation and level of preparation with respect to the findings and recommendations. They said that they were disappointed they had to make the decision on the last day because the information was not complete. Matt Epstein chimed in and said, yes, the information is so incomplete that we are jerry-rigging and within 2 minutes or 2 hours tweaking this plan when the developer should have presented an adequate plan. We refer you to the audio record that we brought with us today that is not available. It is quite compelling. When Jay Kim talked about environmental mitigation, you will see him stutter for over 2 minutes regarding when the photographs were taken and what the traffic congestion reality is. He is the only individual that signed off on the environmental mitigation impact statement that was not available procedurally to appellants. The next thing that I will discuss is Lacey Street Hospitality Service versus the City of Los Angeles, a 2004 California State Appellate Court. It's very important that you recognize that throughout the appeal we will argue that there were inconsistencies in the procedure. In fact, people were given 1 minute to speak after waiting 9.5 hours at the December 16th meeting. They were promised a continuation to January 17th where they would be heard again. 2 members were unable to attend because they were physically reduced and incapacitated by the December 16th hearing. We have that evidence on record for you here, and we reiterate it now. The speaking points there were ADA. The Commissioner is on record as interrupting the authorized speakers regarding the ADA requirement as not federally relevant. It is federally, state, and all Office of Civil Rights and Procedures relevant.
Can you please conclude?
I'll conclude, but it's a lot to discuss. In the findings of the developers presented findings, there's a map called Los Angeles City County Department of Pedestrian Routes for Hubbard Elementary School.
To be fair, I give everybody 2 minutes, so I need you to end.
Just a moment.
No, I need you to end.
This map is a directional map. It is not safe routes to school.
Thank you very much.
That's their premise.
Thank you very much.
And then as an aside,
Thank you, ma'am.
You will hear.
Thank you, ma'am.
The clerk of the court.
Our next speaker. Ma'am, thank you. Thank you. Eugene Hernandez.
He's going to come out, talk to you over there.
I'll talk to you over there.
No, over here's fine.
Eugene Hernandez.
I'd just like to correct the statement that there was no community impact statement. The Silmar Neighborhood Council did come out against this project. I'd like to speak about the findings in error. Significantly, the Los Angeles City Planning Commission on approval of the charter school stated there is no other public high school in the area, the only other public high school being several miles away. In fact, Silmar Public High School is located 1.7 miles away. There are 2 private high schools in the immediate vicinity. The Los Angeles City Planning Commission failed to account for Valley Regional High School number 5 and Valley Regional High School number 4 that each accommodate 2,000 students in charter schools separately, serving 500 students for the entire student population of 4,000 is scheduled to open September 2011 and obtain LA Unified School permits to meet the educational need of high school students in the Silmar area. Furthermore, the pedestrian safety zone, a pedestrian cross safety zone was requested by similar property owners and residents during the January 27th hearing to serve and protect both Hubbard Elementary School and Charter Alliance School. It was not included in the conditions of approval for Alliance Charter School and represents a serious grievance. We have previously submitted photographs of Hubbard Elementary School students and parents whose safety is already in jeopardy and will be dramatically threatened by the Alliance Charter School land use as approved. We now offer real photographs of Hubbard and Eldridge taken while standing at 13245 Hubbard Street, where the only existing crosswalk is and will be utilized by the Alliance Charter School without any meaningful conditions of approval for enhancing public safety. In the case of a proposal to accommodate fewer than 300 students, the LA Planning Commission required a dedicated pedestrian sidewalk for students to safely cross. It is important to note that the conversion to multi-residential is not proceeding, and consequently no pedestrian safety zone is expected to be developed at that location. I would just like to state also that personally, if you, the members of this commission, woke up one morning and imagine a 500-student high school right in front of your doorstep, would you think about the negative impact about this? I'd like to submit this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Stefan Horian? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Just give us your name for the record.
Okay. My name is Esfandiar Ahurayan. I live like 2 blocks from this project, and my house is surrounded by, on my east side is one high school already. My left side, 2 blocks from my left side, is Los Angeles Mission College, which is going to have about 19,000 students, and right now they are parking all over the places, including in front of my house. Down there is a Hubbard Elementary School, and then there is a hospital. And simply I want to say that this place cannot handle any more school, especially this one. I mean, we are not against any, I mean, I love charter school, but all we are saying, this location is totally inappropriate for this. The out-of-control street parking at Los Angeles Mission College extends into the neighborhoods, including where the charter school will be located, unless appropriate action is taken in response to this appeal by Plum. And town hall meeting minutes regarding Los Angeles Mission College parking, wherein in a structure has been provided for registered students, the college, local law enforcement agencies, and Silmar property owners standard. In fact, the garage structure remains virtually empty, while the street area surrounding 13245 West Hubbard and the broader residential area are overrun with vehicle traffic, parking, traffic hazards, and pedestrian visibility issues that are by street side parking exhibit 15. These are facts in evidence, and Los Angeles Mission College is expected to continue to grow to accommodate 19,000 students from the current number of approximately 11,000. The community concerns are independent of the charter school's mission. It is placement, location, location, location. The Silmar general plan. Okay, thank you.
You want to finish your statement? What is your final sentence?
Just like I said at the beginning, I just want to briefly say that all we are saying that this location is overcrowded, is not appropriate for this school. It's already so many public schools around it and will be a disaster for the area.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Mark Wass. And then Danielle Hembry. Good afternoon, sir.
What was that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the first point I want to bring up is the issue of rapid response. Hubbard is a main thoroughfare for that area, and you have already the schools, you have convalescent facilities, and they all have to share that facility. If you have a disaster or something, you have that one artery. And in addition to that, this school because it's in a residential neighborhood, it's going to be surrounded by a block wall all the way around. Now, that might actually turn out to be a trap, you know, because these kids are going to be stuck in that one small area, 500 people. The only way out is around the school on the front side. Secondly, I have another issue, and that is the maps that were used to get to and from school. They didn't really rely on these safe school maps. They relied on a map showing the pedestrian routes, but they used a 2008 one, from what we understand, and it's not quite accurate. So a lot of misrepresentations about how everybody was going to get to school were put in place to get this thing approved. I just want to make one comment. When we were there at the original meeting, you know, there was one commissioner who was listening to all this stuff. Let's mitigate, you know, nothing but mitigate. Mitigate. We're going to mitigate this. We're going to mitigate that. He even knew it was a joke. He talked about the 275 students that are going to be under this 1,500 square foot, area. I mean, that's, what, 5 square feet per student? It's ridiculous. He knew it was ridiculous, and he was going to vote against it. And then when he was told that, if you vote against it, you know, this thing dies, he changed his vote. So, anyway.
Thank you, sir. Daniel Hambry? Daniel, yes.
Acoustics is bad. I guess you all are used to it, though. I want to speak to the no benefit issue. The City Planning Commission erroneously accepted a permit designated for East Garfield High School. That high school is a Stand and Deliver high school that they made the movie on. And it's in jeopardy now. And they issued this permit for that school. This is the only justification that Alliance Charter presented, educational justification for this school being located in Sylmar. But it was meant for Garfield. There is no permit issued for Sylmar for Alliance Charter. There is another school that's been issued a permit in Sylmar. It's called Swap Meet High, and it's being built near Sylmar High. We feel that introducing this school into this mix will be to the detriment of both of those schools. The school district process was bypassed by Alliance Charter. The Planning Commission ignored the fact that the other charter had already been granted. And there was no answer to the question as who's going to take care of Garfield High students who actually need this relief. So, the City Planning Commission hearings and the approval procedure in regards to Alliance Charter's attempt to use the permit that wasn't approved for Sylmar is not just an oversight. We're highly suspicious of this. The ethics and the procedures and the decision-making process that went through this hearing by the Commission and throughout all the Alliance Charter School hearings. The school district has already granted a permit, approved a plan, and set aside money for a charter school in Sylmar, Charter High School.
Can you please conclude?
Alliance Charter School's request for this land will deny Garfield High what they need and provide no benefit to the Sylmar High or to its community.
Thank you, sir. Christopher M. Shows and Berenice Lepe or Leap, I apologize. Lepe, okay. And then Manuel H. Miranda. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Shows. Basically, I'm here, for the appeal, but basically it is the wrong location for it, like everyone's saying. But I just got done preparing a PowerPoint presentation, which I was unable to present. I would like to put this in to the record for you guys. So when you have a chance, you can look at it.
Okay.
Has any of you guys been up there lately to see that location? There's been so much traffic there. Just yesterday, I've seen a truck flip over right in that area, going down Hubbard, right before Hubbard Street Elementary. They had that street blocked for 3 hours for cleanup. And that is a very dangerous area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bernice Lippe, and then Mr. Miranda. Thank you.
I'm Bernice Lepe, and I just want to say, to summarize just one petition, the Selmar property owners and residents signed an argument that the area is oversaturated with schools. There are public and private high schools, elementary schools, and a junior college campus in the immediate vicinity. Traffic and pedestrian safety are major concerns, and charter schools are entitled to exclude ESL and handicap and or low functioning students that do not meet their standards. This is totally a form of discrimination against students while using public funds in order to operate public schools. The charter school, as approved, is in the immediate vicinity of Mission College, where parking needs continue to expand and law enforcement acknowledge the surrounding community has been overburdened and overwhelmed by street parking. All mitigation monitoring measures approved by the Planning Commission are self-regulating, self-monitoring, and conducted by Alliance Charter Schools with no meaningful city oversight, enforcement authority, and penalties for compliance throughout the many years the school will be expected to operate. And land use, traffic, and pedestrian safety, planning, and infrastructure are all related and important elements.
Thank you. Mr. Miranda? And then I believe it's Benjamin Williams.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
The Los Angeles City Planning Commission is responsible for considering current planning projects in relation to those that are known to be pending, and we are aggrieved because they abdicated their roles and responsibilities. The Land Use Planning Commission is the organization that is responsible for aligning infrastructure with growth and development proposals according to Caltrans, how decisions are made. It is a commission that knows about new projects, shopping centers, and land use projects that affect local transportation systems. The onset of urban sprawl, unmitigated growth, and traffic congestions are a direct result of poor land use transportation planning. The responsibility belongs to this commission, along with the decision-making authority to approve or deny projects, and with the Silmar property owners and residents on appeal once the commission has abdicated the role. As but one example, the Los Angeles City Planning Commission abdicated their responsibility for taking into consideration their approval of the Sakaida and Sons surface mining project, where the Los Angeles Department of Regional Planning has written, and I quote, "The only access to the site is from Hubbard Street via Interstate 210 freeway to Gavina Avenue East and then north along Pacoima Canyon Road." Exhibit 26, Notice of Preparation, April 9, 2007, Sakaida and Sons Surface Mining Project. Double trailer gravel trucks will transit Hubbard during weekdays to get from the mine location from the 210 and back to the 210, and charter school students will be required to cross Hubbard Street on foot in the midst of that traffic as well. Verification of Los Angeles City and Planning Commission awareness, circa 2007.
Sir, I need you to finish.
Note, in the city and state of California, documents Hubbard Street via the 210 along residential streets where schools already exist, along with Mission College is the only route for
Thank
the
you,
trucks.
sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, you already spoke. I called you inadvertently. Our next speaker is Isabel Miranda.
Good evening. My name is Isabel Miranda, and I am here just very positive that somebody over here is going to have common sense. When we went to the last meeting to the land commissioners over there on Van Nuys, we present a lot of pictures and proofs that there is a very unsafe place for a charter school. We don't need no more schools in that area. We have Mission College, we have Hubbard Elementary School, we have El Carrizo Park, Veterans Park, the golf course, a private middle and high school, Sirma High School. But there is a person in Silmar that is destroying our city, and that is Al Alvarez, Avila. He is a good friend of Mr. Alarcon, and I don't know why Mr. Alarcon is so stubborn that to say no to this project. This is completely unsafe. Are you waiting for something to happen like it happens in Fontana? Over there around the place where they want to put this school, there is no sidewalks. Do you want that something that happen? And also, Mr. Alarcon is saying that one of the goals and the rules for the charter school is that everybody have to go to school in bicycles. A few days ago, Mr. Alarcon went to another school in Silmar talking about how dangerous it is going to school in a bicycle. If any of your kids is going to go to that school, are you going to send them in a bicycle? When they are going to high school, the one thing they want to do is to go and drive in their own automobile. There is completely unsafe. We don't even have paths for bicycles. What is going on? I am hoping that somebody over here today is going to go to that place physically to watch what is going on over there every single day. Right now we have huge trucks going because somebody else, very intelligent, authorized to dynamite the mountains, and they are huge cars going down and up every single day full of material. What is going to happen? Please, I am seeing that you are watching pictures. You are watching something very nice, but look at the pictures that we present to you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Daniela Ariano. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniela Arellano. I am a current USC student writing my thesis on sustainability in the campus. And based on my expertise, I am extremely opposed to this proposition to develop a high school that is supposed to be sustainable, but really it has no elements of sustainability in it whatsoever. The developers were asked to make this LEED certified, and their response was that they could not make it LEED certified because they had a limited budget, that it was not financially feasible. Now, to me, it seems that Campus USA LLC, as a private corporation, has a corporate social responsibility to make local residents happy and to have a positive symbiotic relationship with those who are opposed. The people here are only a couple of the people based on the hundreds of people who are actually opposed to this project. And it really doesn't make sense that if hundreds of people are opposed to this based on traffic concerns, based on safety concerns, based on how this campus is not going to be sustainable, how is it possible that these clowns are going to be approved for something that's not sustainable? It's really absolutely ridiculous. And I agree, you guys should take a look out there and see what a little tiny area it is. It's basically like putting 60 students in a 2-car garage, which one of the commissioners mentioned, and it's true. It's not right. It's not sustainable in the long run. One of the aspects of sustainability and LEED certification is that campuses have to be created on should not be created on undeveloped land. This is a one-family home that they want to create into a campus for more than 500 people, because if you take into consideration the staff and the faculty, that's not going to be 500 students plus visitors. They have to be kidding me. You guys really have to take a look at this and analyze what a ridiculous proposition it is. Beautiful on paper, but in reality, it's a joke. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have Greg Brindle. The last speaker before our representative from the council office, Mr. Brindle. You are the applicant, correct?
My name is Greg Brindle. I'm the Executive Director of Campus USA, and I'm the applicant in this case. It's a pleasure to be before you today. You have been, each of you councilmen have a book that was submitted to you like this. In addition, a series of architectural renderings and copies of the building plans for this project. This project began for us approximately 16 months ago, at which time we went before the Neighborhood Council Land Use Committee and received a 4-1 positive vote. We then met with the Department of Transportation and conducted a thorough transportation study, which was approved by Sergio Valdez, the regional DOT director, and was passed through the Department of Transportation system and approved. We then went through an environmental approval process and received a positive negative declaration report. And through that process, there were some mitigations that were suggested, which we adopted as a part of our plan. Following that, the zoning administrator held a hearing in the office in Van Nuys. Several people appeared at that hearing, and following that hearing, he made a staff recommendation, which was then submitted to the Planning Commission. And at the Planning Commission, through 2 hearings, we received a unanimous vote for approval for this project. Since that time, the Planning Commission instituted approximately 30 recommendations for mitigations or conditions. Those are included not only in your package, but in the reports that I'm assuming that all of you have received. And at this particular point, we can say that we have complied with all of those. A lot of those were raised as questions and issues today, but the bottom line issue today is this is a land use. I'm a developer. I'm a developer of real estate. The question here is whether or not I have the right on my property to develop a charter school. And in compliance with all the requirements that have been set before us, we have met or exceeded all of those requirements. We've exceeded all of the requirements of the Planning Commission as they set forth in their conditions of approval. So we're asking you to reject the appeal today and approve this for our development. This is not an Alliance school. This is not an Aspire school. This is the opportunity for us to provide an improvement for the community. Thank you.
Before you leave, I just have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Looking at your submittal, what's the average size for a classroom?
750 square feet.
And what's the average size of the ones that are being offered by this project?
I'm sorry, sir.
What's the average size classroom being offered by this project?
Between 700 and 750 feet.
So you're within the range of what's
typical for a charter school operator, yes, sir.
Is that considered the low end or the high end, or is that the average?
We have built schools with as low as 575 feet and as high as 800 feet. So this would be toward the high end of that range for a charter school.
And how many students per classroom?
Typically 25 to 28.
And is that what's expected here?
Yes, sir.
In terms of circulation and traffic, I'm echoing the concerns. These hearings are about addressing issues raised in the public hearing process. So there's some pretty serious assertions being made. When we speak to the issue of traffic impact on the local community, and given the circulation pattern you have within your plans, how many cars will you be able to absorb given the layout of your plan?
Inside the plan, we have prepared it. It's on page 7 of the documents that you have before you. Inside that plan, you will see that there is a cul-de-sac and a 2-lane road which proceeds through the property. There can be 60 cars stacked within that facility. And the drop-off for actual students is in the cul-de-sac area, and it's supervised both by staff there and by staff at the entrance. In addition, we have widened Hubbard by 1 lane. We've dedicated the highway, and we're providing full improvements and sidewalks all along Hubbard in front of the property. We, as part of the Department of Transportation traffic study, analyzed 7 intersections, starting with 1 intersection above Eldridge, all the way down to the 210 freeway. Currently, all of those intersections, based upon DOT standards, are deemed to be A or B rated, which is passing. We also analyzed all of the additional projects that are online going out clear to 2014, and all the ambient projects for the area. The Department of Transportation selected all of the ambient projects that were there, and we reanalyzed each and every one of those intersections up to 2014, which includes some massive increases of development at Mission College. As a part of that, it showed that all the intersections except the westbound intersection to 210 passed with an A or a B even in 2014. Now, as a part of that, we agreed to mitigate by making a contribution to the traffic mitigation study being completed by Mission College to re-signalize the 7 intersections that go from our project to the freeway, which would provide a better transportation flow. And that's part of a condition of approval.
Okay, but all right. So when we look at the layout, how many students are we anticipating at the high end?
500.
500 students? When I look at the layout and how big is this green spot that you have next to the classrooms?
I can't tell you the exact square footage, but it's close to 4,500 feet.
So during recess and lunch, you're going to have 500 kids?
Actually, lunch is served in 2 phases. You'll see on page 6, you'll see a covered area, I think, or 6 or 7, you'll see a covered area, and then the succeeding page, you'll see it laid out with students. We have provided, that's the page that shows the covered. One of the requirements of the Planning Commission is we cover the area. Students will be able to eat outside in 2 seatings of 275 students, which allows for actually 550 students. And then the page before that or after that will show the number of actual tables that are there. And so that's the way typically we provide food service. Food service is brought in by an outside professional company that is a dietitian company, and they're contracted on a contractual basis by the school operator.
So that'll be in shifts?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Former school board member. This is right in your bailiwick. Is this proportional to size? I mean, hearing the community, then hearing the presentation. I'm trying to get a feel for compatibility.
Yeah, well, there's, having served on the Board of Education, it put a plan together to build 180 schools. Citing a school is no easy task. You're always going to have the donut effect where I believe people immediately around this site will have the most concerns, although the area is going to, the public amenity of the public school is going to serve the larger regional area. I've also seen a number of charter schools go up, and they don't always are not required to meet state standards on constructions of schools. But this is typical, similar to a lot of other charter schools that have been built in the last few years. To me, I haven't seen anything here that would strike me as non-compatible with the local community, at least what I've seen in the application.
In terms of the lot frontage, I'm just trying to get a feel for the streetscape. What's the lot frontage like? What's the linear feet, do you know?
Currently, it's approximately 230 feet from one side of the property to the other. When it currently sits up a little higher, it will be reduced to street level as a part of the grading process.
230 feet across, and how deep? What's the footage?
It's approximately 250 feet deep.
Whoa.
It's 1.62 acres. This is the largest charter school site out of the 23 schools we've built in our history.
And what's the parcel frontage on properties next door, adjacent?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Any questions, Councilmember?
I guess the concern that I heard that caught my ear the most was the pedestrian safety issues that are affected by this, because as we all have, we've had tragic situations, that we've had to deal with kids walking back and forth to school. And again, calling upon Mr. Weezar's expertise on this, since this is proximate to an LAUSD elementary school, would it be typical that LAUSD would comment on safety issues if there were some that would impact the students of the existing school by having a charter school come in the same neighborhood, or would that not be typical?
It wouldn't be typical for LAUSD to comment on those. Usually they leave them up to the city in terms of our planning procedures to comment on those, although I've seen instances where it does raise issues, and we had commented on them, but typically we were focused on approving their academic content of the charter school, not so much the physical layout and the land use issues associated with that. But sometimes there were some schools that we did raise a number of safety issues, but we would typically leave those up to the city to comment on those.
So part of and the concern initially would be if you have a high school nearby an elementary school, high school kids drive, but it's my understanding that there's a prohibition of your students or their parents driving them to school. How has that worked in your other school? How is that enforced? Talk about that a little bit.
Alliance, who is our chosen charter school operator for this site, currently has 16 high schools in the city of Los Angeles, 7 of which perform in the top 21 educationally in the city. They allow no student to drive to school under any conditions. And that is a consistent charter management organization directed decision. And so each time a new student comes in or each time a class is started, parents and students must sign a pledge about non-driving. If they are caught driving, there's a warning the first time and an expulsion following that.
Okay, so what if they drive to the street in front of the local elementary school and park there and then walk the last block or so? How does that impact?
If we only can police a certain area, we can't police what happens a long way away, but every school is mandated to submit, as they go through this process of being qualified to actually become the charter operator of the site, an access plan, an emergency management plan, and a traffic plan. And those will be submitted regardless of which charter operator goes into this school. Those will be approved by the Los Angeles Unified School District as a part of their application package. The one exception to that could be currently PUC, Partnership for Uplifting Communities, has 2 schools in Sylmar that are in leased facilities. They need a new permanent facility. They could fill this school with 500 kids tomorrow because they're going to have to build 2 new schools in the next 2 years to take care of that. In that case, they already have a full plan. They would just have to submit their emergency acquisition plan and the traffic plan. The plan that you see in the study is the one that was approved for the elementary school, for traffic circulation and pedestrian circulation. That same plan modified you see in the second part of that page is the plan that is being requested for approval by the Los Angeles Unified School District for this site.
Okay. Well, I know that Mr. Alarcon is at least as concerned as anyone else that I know about pedestrian safety because of tragedy that impacted his family. So when we hear from the council office, I'd actually like to hear a little bit more about that too.
It's very seldom that a distinguished councilman, such as the 3 of you who sit here, would have come to a planning commission hearing and plead a case. In this particular case, Councilman Alarcon came to the planning commission, sat for 2 hours almost before he got the chance to speak, and gave an impassioned plea to approve this project. That's a very rare occurrence and indicates his support for this project.
Okay. Any other questions for? Okay. I'd like to ask the council office to come on up.
Honorable council members, how are you? Faisal Al-Sari, planning deputy for Councilmember Alarcon, Chairman Reyes, and it's great to have a former school board member on the committee today. Councilmember Alarcon does support the City Planning Commission approval for this project. There have been a number of iterations in the last year and a half to address a number of the concerns raised, which he wholeheartedly respects. He has, as you know, Councilmember Krikorian, been very adamant about pedestrian safety, not only in the city of Los Angeles, but at the state level as well. And in this school, there is a pedestrian safety plan to get students not only to the school, but during lunch hours to Mission College. This site is actually very unique because it is catty corner from the Los Angeles Mission College, which Councilmember Alarcon helped establish in the community. Mission College is one of the most successful community colleges in the state of California, has a number of trade programs that they want to coordinate with the high school. and that will provide a great benefit to the community socially, as well as opportunities for children to grow. I just want to say that the Planning Commission did hear this twice. This was vetted through the Planning Department, the Department of Transportation, the Fire Department, our Public Works Department, and has gone through the multi-step levels. There are still today a number of perception issues, despite our office's opportunities to try to address those. Despite what is said, the school is ADA compatible. The school cannot be built if it was not ADA compatible and handicap and wheelchair accessible. This school, regarding the school board permits, is that really is a matter for the school board. They can take that on after this. There is a sidewalk in this school to access the park. I'm not sure why that's still an issue. And the mining project, the council member is opposed to that project. It's not a project within the city of Los Angeles. It's a project in front of the County Board of Supervisors, and he has sent a letter expressing concern about having mining trucks down Hubbard. So with that said...
So I'm sorry, so are there trucks driving down Hubbard from that project?
No,
Please.
For the Sakaida mining project, which is the major project that was raised, which is proposing, I think, something like over 1,000 trucks per day. That project is going through an EIR phase with the County Board of Supervisors. To our knowledge, and we have sent staff to investigate from the city, that those trucks are not in operations now. The county does have truck traffic that goes through basins. That's not the city of Los Angeles. We don't control that truck traffic. We are working with them to try to mitigate that, but that is not the city of Los Angeles. That is not Councilmember Alarcon that is advocating for additional truck traffic. It's actually quite the opposite. This school will improve traffic by actually signalizing the 7 intersections, paying for the mitigation fund, and working with the community to address these issues.
What are the timeframes for this in terms of, perhaps the city clerk could help me on that. What's the time frame for council consideration on this item? Do you happen to have that on your records?
Yeah, the last day for council action is May 13th.
May 13th. I hear what you're saying, and I understand the level of complexity here. The truck traffic really bothers me. I know it's a county issue, but how we can divert the trucks, to me, is a big concern. I don't want to say, well, that's not our problem because it's not in our jurisdiction, but it's impacting all of the same constituents. So from that point of view, perhaps we can coordinate with the county, because they impose hours and limitations on these different projects and programs. And have we had that conversation with the county supervisor?
Yes, our office has had that conversation with the county supervisor.
And what was the response?
They did actually realign some of the truck traffic. My colleague, Dan Rosales, I'm not sure if you'd like to speak, or maybe one of our other staff that isn't here is probably more knowledgeable than I am, but they have diverted a number of trucks. There's an issue in the northern part of the city that I'm sure you're well aware of, that the access to the mountains is limited. So in order to remove debris...
Let me ask this. If we were to continue this 1 week, could we still meet the original deadline for this process?
Well, we could also, if that is the only issue, we could approve it, send it to council, and address those issues that it gets to council. If it's the truck issues, those could be explained or get an answer. I wouldn't like to see this wonderful project that's going to serve a number of students in the area be held up on that one issue. And believe me, we've built schools with bigger issues, and if this is the, excuse me, ma'am, I'm speaking, thank you. If this is the one issue, it's an issue that needs to be addressed for safety reasons, but it shouldn't be the one issue that holds up this project. So I feel more comfortable moving this forward and getting those answers before we approve it in council.
Well, we have the council support on this project, and quite frankly, I put a lot of weight on the council member of the district, because obviously they're there because they're voted by their constituents, so that has a lot of bearing and a lot of weight from my point of view. What I'd like to do is get a report back, some type of indicator as to how that issue, and I agree with the Councilman Huizar, the councilman who is the person accountable to his constituents. So I'd like to get that question answered. If we could get something in writing from the county supervisor, some kind of coordination, because these are pretty big trucks, and you have a lot of students on that one street. And if these pictures reflect a certain reality, then I know we're creating a problem here that we might regret later. So, any other observations on this issue, Councilman?
We have, really thorough documentation here addressing a lot of the issues that have been raised, and I agree with you that I want to certainly give the greatest deference to our staff and to the council member representing this district that is supported by the documentation that's in front of us. The one issue that sticks with me is that pedestrian safety issue, and if we have time to be able to understand that better, and it's not just limited to this truck issue. I mean, that you talked about some of the mitigations in the traffic signal upgrades and so on. Whether we move it forward to council or not, I guess I would like to have a better sense of the pedestrian safety issues before I vote on this in council. But I wouldn't be opposed to moving it forward if we get it addressed by then. But if you, Mr. Chairman, would like to have a report back in this committee, I defer to you as chair in doing so.
Well, I appreciate that.
Councilmember, could I just suggest that if we do that, we can also do a comparison of other schools in the city and what sort of truck traffics they deal with, what size those schools are, because we were told by planning staff that this is larger than most charter schools, and so we can take a look at the comparable effects of this area to, say, downtown or perhaps some of the other truck trafficked areas in the city.
I think the issue is going to be the intensity. I mean, I could tell you right now there's other schools that are going to have a lot more intensity of traffic than this. But the issue is how do you mitigate whatever is there, and I think that's what you want to get to. So, in other traffic issues, when I mentioned earlier that it's usually the school board will look at the city for safety, traffic safety issues, it's that the charter schools would come up with a plan, but we have no enforcement mechanism, right? It's just, this is what we would do for safety, would provide teachers to be out there at certain hours to help the students cross the street. But it was the city who actually could put in something with teeth in there that would enforce whatever safety standards the city would like to see. In this instance, if traffic safety is an issue, I think, it's going to exist no matter, and that's why the school district didn't build schools for 30 years, because we always came up with issues like this. The issue is mitigating those issues that they come up.
But if you look at, for me, the open-ended issue here is the county supervisor's discretion of how they are managing the hours of traffic by the trucks coming through this as one element of many other traffic issues. And I'm not getting an answer on that because you don't have the person here that can address it.
Right.
And that to me weighs heavy because these are huge vehicles coming through this corridor. And when you have 500 young people coming and going and Councilman Kukorian alluded to this, if they're not going to park on site, they're going to park somewhere. And they're going to be traveling in and out of this facility or in bikes, which also could be dangerous when you have these huge trucks, running through this place. Can you help us out?
Yeah, Councilman, if I could, Dan Rosales with Councilman's office. Just a point of clarification, the project that was applied for by Sakaida and Sons, the mining operation, they applied for an EIR back in 2007. They have not even gone through their scoping meetings yet. So what was projected there was it would be up to 115 trips, truck trips, either through Hubbard or on this side of McClay. But that operation has not started. They have not even, it's a huge impact, but it has not started. Those trucks are not due to mining operations going on because they have not even gone through the NOP process yet. They have not had their scoping meetings with the community.
Right.
So whatever trucks are there or that you have there in your photos are not related to a current operation because it has not been approved.
Gotcha.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, in light of that, and I think we clearly heard from the constituents that there are trucks in the area right now. For whatever reason, there are trucks there. It sounds as though the county's decision-making process is not going to be something that is going to impact that one way or the other in the near term. It's going to be a good long while before that decision is made and before truck traffic begins from that operation. But there are trucks right now in the neighborhood. And so I guess my bigger concern is not so much what the county commits to or doesn't commit to, but whether the mitigation measures that are being proposed to be in place now for this school are adequate and enforceable without regard to what the county decides to do on that.
Gotcha. So if we can ask thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Can I ask the staff to come up? Given the discussion that is before us, and given the concerns about trucks and circulation, your professional opinion, did we mitigate this facility to the extent that we can, given its proposed use?
This is a project that I personally did struggle with as well.
Give us your name, please, for the record.
Jay Kim, my apologies, for the planning staff. This project is, generally when we receive a project like this, we look to DOT for traffic advisement, and based on their assessment, we take a recommendation. Above and beyond that, I did go out there. During my hearing officer hearing prior to commission, I had asked the community during my public hearing, when would be the peak hour that, if I were to go out there and sit there and watch it, what would be the best time to see that peak hour? It was 2 to 4. I went out there, I sat there during a weekday between those 2 hours, and I wanted to see it empirically whether or not what the impacts were. Surprisingly, it wasn't as bad during that particular day as I had understood from the public comments. However, in the morning peak hour, it's a bit more because the commuter traffic compounds that impact on top of the school, the elementary and the mission school classes occur. So I believe the primary concern is the morning peak hours, although it's not specified in the traffic study as clearly, but based on my study, that's where the concerns are, and that's why we had mitigated this project where the school hours would be staggered after the starting hours for the elementary school down the road, and end later than that. And part of the other conditioning was the phasing to monitor that progress of the 125 students per year compounded into full build out in 2014.
So in good conscience, being there, seeing it, you feel that we were able to put together policies and procedures and schedules that does address the concerns we heard today from the public?
Yes, I do. Based on hours, operations, mitigation measures that are put in place through ATSAC, the synchronization of the traffic signals. Design was actually modified at commission by the commissioners. There were some concern about some of the driver issues. There's also concerns where the left turn into the project would be affected. So there, I believe there is a condition there where a semi-permanent median would be put in place where no left turn is allowed. So it's right in, right out, as opposed to left turn into the project. There are measures in the project that are conditioned.
Can we get a report back, let's say, in 6 months, the performance of these conditions?
There are a clear condition for plan approvals after 1 year, after the issuance of a C of O, after 1 year, to come back and report back. So that is in place as a condition.
So we will assess the performance.
And they would have to submit a plan approvals case.
Good. Councilors?
And there is a 24-hour phone, all that complaint to the community. So we try to do as much as we can.
And excuse me. Go ahead.
Right there's some coffee.
Okay. That's a 5-hour energy juice.
So the phasing is such that there's 125 or 150 students per year until the 500 maximum is reached. And during the course of that phased period, we will then have an opportunity to the city will have an opportunity to revisit whether or not those traffic mitigations are effective, and we'll have the input of the Department of Transportation. We'll have further input from the community at that time. We'll have the benefit of experience to know whether additional traffic mitigations might be necessary, and we will have the opportunity to impose them with the benefit of experience over the course of that phased period then, right?
Yes, the plan approvals process, there's some discretion in terms of whether or not another public hearing is required. At this point, you could mandate that the subsequent plan approvals be required, the public hearings to come back and monitor the process. So it could be done, set up where that it happens once every year, and you could continue to do that to monitor the progress of the project.
Okay. Well, any suggested actions from my colleagues on this?
Well, I'm of the position that I'd like to move to approve, but if you still need some information, I don't think the type of information that we're looking for, would merit a continuation, but more of let's get that before we approve it in council. So either one is
if I may
my position
add
right
one
now.
more comment. As part of the project, staff recommended to the commission, commission adamantly agreed that the project be required to comply with LEED certification level, even though the project size is less than 50,000 square feet. The project size is 27,000 square feet. Staff recommended that be required as part of the benefits, and the commission wholeheartedly agreed that that should be a requirement.
Okay. Okay, so we have action, have a second?
Second.
Okay. So, the action of this committee would be to be very specific. Are we granting in part or denying in part, or is this a full denial of the appeal?
It would be a denial.
Denial of the appeal.
Of denial of the appeal, okay. And with no other conditions to be added, no other issues that need to be added to the language?
It hasn't been submitted. Any other changes?
Nothing else?
There's some technical, no? Okay.
Okay.
As is.
So we'll deny the appeal, and that'll be the action of this committee. No, sir. Okay, our next item?
I think we're up to item 13, the Director of Planning's oral status report.
No, we don't have him here today. Okay, anybody have a public comment?
Yeah.
Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.